UFOs. There, I've said it. The heavens didn't fall. No crescendos of laughter, third-rate one-liners, or choruses of sarcastic put-downs? UFOs, that mystical acronym. Not military weaponized werewolves being field-tested in U.S. national parks? Not rogue CIA groups trafficking children into government pedophile rings? Not people being abducted into sinister underground bases for horrific, cruel experiments? For centuries, millions of people around the world from all walks of life have seen UFOs, now apparently called UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and mysterious craft and beings have been sighted in the sky, many times in clear weather conditions, and up close. Some even claim to have been in direct contact with, or even abducted by, alien beings. They later recalled disturbing details of their horrific experiences, verified by professional analysis, including hypnosis and polygraphs. Sometimes these victims bared physical scars as well as the enduring psychological ones. Eyewitnesses have included even the most powerful and influential people on Earth, from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and Winston Churchill to U.S. Presidents Reagan, Eisenhower, and Carter. Even Prince Philip was a firm believer in alien existence and even sent his equerry, Sir Peter Horsley, World War II hero and later Air Marshal of RAF Nuclear Strike Command, on fact-finding missions. Horsley insisted right up to the day of his death in 2001 it was 100% true and didn't care what anybody thought. UFO reports from within all branches of the militaries around the globe alone must number in the hundreds of thousands, from the First World War to today. That's just the ones that weren't stifled and suppressed. I wonder what proportion these abducted victims are, from the total massive number of the missing majority who haven't survived to tell their story, of the true, full history of human abduction. Not just by UFOs, but by cryptids and paranormal phenomena that don't exist, remember? Amongst the millions of UFO eyewitness reports from civilians examined by authorities, usually with photographs or video clips, a small fraction of them, 5% according to former Ministry of Defense civil servant Nick Pope, still massive in number. Experts and authorities have always maintained that the evidence in them has not been faked, has totally baffled them, and that it cannot be dismissed despite even the most rigorous professional testing. People have even been followed, harassed, or worse, by strange men, or whatever they were, from certain government or other acronym agencies, merely for saying they have seen UFOs. People from all backgrounds and cultures, like the dignified middle class and now famous couple, Barney and Betty Hill, were once mocked by angry deniers and trolls in the media, and now across the internet, with derogatory terms. One such as the rather childish tin-foil hats, a misnomer born from conspiracy believers wearing headgear lined with foil. It's actually aluminium, worn to shield the brain from threats such as mind control and UFO attacks. This is despite the fact that highly trained professional observers like the military, police officers, scientists, and even NASA astronauts, who are surely the greatest and most trusted eyewitnesses ever, have long insisted upon the reality of alien beings and their advanced ships making impossible maneuvers. In the U.S., the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has set rigid damage limitation policies in case airline pilots encounter such aerial phenomenon. Why are such prestigious professionals completely trusted to fly complex aircraft, to think under enemy fire and to remember complicated details under extreme stress, but are suddenly not trusted, but instead threatened, when they report seeing things that go against what the government swear do not exist? Of course, we acknowledge that our military will hide their latest weapons and keep their bases secure. But even people in elevated positions of authority have accused them, sometimes with first-hand testimony, of going way beyond that. In December 2017, something totally shocking happened. The US government actually told the truth. The mighty biblical floodgates creaked open and the colossal tidal wave of ancient secrets gushed forth. And lo, the world ended in a cataclysmic terrific apocalypse of galaxy-splitting proportions. Okay, not quite. But what did happen was that the US government and the Belgian government 28 years before them announced that UFOs suddenly do exist. What? They don't exist 1 minute, then they do the very next? They paraded evidence to show the world, US Navy fighter cockpit cam footage of an evasive UAP, performing impossible speeds in maneuvers. Senator Marco Rubio, the former acting chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence, spoke on CBS News about mysterious flying objects in restricted airspace. He stated,
"We don't know what it is, and it isn't ours."
Ours meaning terrestrial. So, now we aren't stupid and paranoid and harassed for seeing them as well? Why, how decent of them. So where are those pesky weather balloons now? Those poor men in black serve no further purpose. Are they now claiming welfare benefits? Former CIA Director John Brennan admitted, somewhat awkwardly, that he didn't quite know what to think, although he has gone on record stating that it would be arrogant of us to assume that nothing else existed out there. David Norquist, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, announced the formal existence of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, an offshoot of the ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. In 2019, the U.S. Space Force, yes, really, was formed to conduct military space operations and wage space warfare. Great idea, guys. Let's anger unknown aliens with mysterious, highly advanced killing capabilities. What's the worst that could happen? I'm really rooting for our F-35 fighter planes over light-speed saucers. No catastrophic consequences there, right? But on a serious note, many sources, for example, Ben Rich, former director of Lockheed Martin's top-secret experimental skunkworks, Bob Dean, former military intelligence with cosmic top-secret security clearance, and former CIA officer Kevin Shipp, all publicly stated that the level of technology in the military, NASA, and intelligence agencies are decades ahead of what the public think they are. Amongst the Space Force's intelligence, surveillance and military are the elite and secretive U.S. Delta Force, specially trained and armed to combat alien threats. Much like their British counterparts whom they were modeled upon, the elite SAS unit in the UK Strategic Command, formed in 2019. Russia was the first country to form one of these secretive and elite forces years before, followed by China. What really prompted this unexpected and groundbreaking official disclosure? A sudden surge of moral decency? An uncharacteristic outburst of guilt and a burning desire for redemption? Or could it partly be because they've been forced to come clean because of the prevalence of ever-improving commercially available high-resolution cameras, with which the general public can easily prove the existence of UFOs for themselves? So they officially exist and that's it, go home, game over? No, we want to know what these aliens look like anyway, what the dickens they want, and how many different species are there? Are they benign beings sent by God to help humans? Or demons sent by the devil to do stomach-churningly sick things to us? Or were their distant ancestors, in fact, human? But all of this doesn't mean, of course, that other world governments are decent, sharing and caring, like the lovely and cuddly American government. In Britain alone, the astounding number of cases reported by the military and public alike are consistently still denied officially. There are UFO case reports even involving Special Forces units on deployment in Northern Ireland. U.S. Colonel Charles Halt, deputy commander at RAF Rendlesham Base in 1980, still insists that the UFO craft that he and his men encountered up close in the base perimeter woods was very real. Ultra-high radiation meter reading evidence, local radar confirmation and strange ground and tree markings support their account despite the U.S. government's and the British Ministry of Defence's denials. One of his men, Airman First Class John Burroughs, finally won a case in 2015 from the U.S. military to pay his medical bills resulting from the subsequent radiation he suffered by touching and examining the landed craft. So much for swamp gases and weather balloons, right? So, does this huge confession mean that the American government will now offer heartfelt apologies to tens of thousands of disgraced and bullied eyewitnesses and medically verified abductees? And their families? At least say sorry and financially compensate those victims for the shame, stress, and pain of being targeted by intelligence-led, dirty smear campaigns designed to ruin their reputations, careers, and destroy lives? Not to mention the wasted millions in taxpayers' hard-earned dough by ordering thousands of illegal home burglaries and wiretaps? Similarly, those poor farmers around the world losing fortunes each year in expensive cattle losses when their cows and horses are found horrifically mutilated each month in the most grisly manner. Surgically. Like lasers. Their eyes plucked out, tongues and private parts excised, all extracted with the utmost precision and leaving not a drop of blood on the scene. In addition, vets sometimes even say that the injuries of the cattle, verified by the farmers as theirs, resemble having been dropped from a great height. No animal tracks or footprints or sign of machinery is visible around or near them. Also strange is how predators, and even blowflies, won't go anywhere near those carcasses. Some vigilant and frustrated farmers have reported seeing or even shooting at strange lights or black helicopters at night around the time. Supernatural? Secret military? Disturbingly, there has even allegedly been human mutilation cases. Again, laser-like dissection injuries? Suppressed of course, but leaked by brave eyewitnesses, police, military, or journalists. Should we now honor the silent whistleblower heroes who fought or who fell or were pushed for the full truth in the long bitter campaign of official stonewalling? Like Philip Schneider, the geologist and engineer employed by the U.S. government in the construction of deep underground military bases, known as dumps. After his experiences, he toured the U.S. making public speeches to educate us about aliens beneath the Dulce secret base and their sickening plans for humanity. He once said to his friends,
"If I ever commit suicide, I was murdered."
Allegedly, he committed suicide in January 1996, after years of being harassed by certain agencies. He didn't expect to live long, but it was still shocking for his family and surviving friends when he hung himself, with his catheter wrapped around his neck 3 times, despite having fingers from one hand missing, and be found slumped forward at an unusual angle, leaving no blood or vomit at the scene. He believed 11 of his best friends had been murdered in the last 22 years, 8 of whose deaths had been officially explained as suicides. His widow has stated that intelligence agents thoroughly searched the premises shortly after his death and made off with at least a third of the family photographs. Official verdict: suicide. How many other silent members of the public the military, journalists, scientists, medics, civil servants and police officers, etc., have been murdered or suicided by unnamed agencies to shut them up? How many more in future? Are the government ever going to admit if they, or darker, malevolent forces behind, amongst or above them, have cooperated in any way with alien races? The alleged and sinister cold treaties, revolting scientific experiments and disturbing concessions made to these unknown species? I wonder what plans these alien species have for humanity, and why our supposed elites are allowing it. Is there an occultist or Freemason element amongst the super-wealthy, all-powerful old money families? Government employees working at secret bases, such as Philip Schneider, Bob Lazar, or Ben Rich, have all revealed stunning information and made very public statements about aliens, impossible advanced technology and their secret presence on Earth. Some other such eminent people revealed their accounts shortly before their own natural deaths. Very telling. The lame excuse offered by our governments for not telling the world the truth about UFOs was that world religions could end, amidst global financial and societal meltdowns, bloody riots and mass world anarchy? Really? What made them think religion would end? None of that has happened after the government's rather blunt revelation, which stopped so short of explaining so much. We barely even noticed in our humdrum lives, trying to pay ever-increasing bills. None of the projected hysteria dreamed up or expected by our supposed elites on the dramatic scale of Orson Welles' infamous 1938 radio broadcast of War of the Worlds? Many former intelligence agency whistleblowers in the West, such as Kevin Shipp, Robert Steele, Ed Snowden, David Shaler, John Kiriakou, Ted Gunderson, and William Binney, plus so many more credible, defiant whistleblowers over the decades from different agencies in different countries, have relayed depressing accounts of how their former employers have done illegal, even revolting, things, harassed citizens and launched sickening black ops campaigns and uncongressionally funded operations. Declassified files and Freedom of Information requests have revealed disturbing actions and operations, like Operation Northwoods, the sickening precursor of 9/11 in 1962, which JFK thankfully refused to sanction. President Eisenhower, the famous World War II Supreme Commander, warned the world in his televised 1961 farewell speech about the dangers of the MIC, military-industrial complex. Former CIA officer of 18 years, Kevin Shipp, has given toured speeches about his former employers. They are, according to him and so many others, their very own rogue shadow government. They completely dominate the other 16 U.S. agencies, operate inside the U.S. illegally, and hide their own limitless black budget, amassed from many nefarious black ops. They make their own foreign policies bypassing the U.S. government, snoop on Congress, Senate and presidents, traffic drugs and children, fund terrorists, extremists, and conducted sickening medical and mind experiments. They have overthrown democratic governments, assassinated elected politicians, and continue to wage secret unsanctioned wars overseas. Not like the Nazis at all, huh? Just research for yourself the many frustrated quotes made by President Truman, the man who actually signed the CIA into existence in 1947 upon the deceitful advice of men such as the sinister Allen Dulles, but bitterly regretted it only years later. Or the publicly made statements by JFK and a plethora of military officers and senior politicians trying to warn us about this secretive, insidious power operating independently and arrogantly, like a feral street gang or a demonic serial killer. Their technology suppliers and contractors, such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, etc., closely support the MIC. Together they bribe, blackmail or threaten politicians, control the mainstream and social media, and Hollywood. The gateways to our minds. Whistleblowers have to run the gauntlet of several ugly layers of target nastiness, oceans of legal red tape, draconian secret security laws, enclosed courts, bail threats, and worse. Control of what information the masses see and hear, or not, is everything. Perhaps Eisenhower's carefully worded farewell speech was referring to far more than just the actual agencies or businesses themselves. U.S. President Roosevelt had secretly fought these powerful and unpleasant elements. The business plot of 1933 aimed to overthrow him and install a pro-fascist puppet leader. Bankers and huge public figures like Henry Ford, Walt Disney, the Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan, Prescott Bush, the DuPont family, Howard Hines and William Randolph Hearst got together with famous U.S. institutions like General Motors, Heinz, and U.S. Steel. These extremely wealthy people eventually failed, thanks largely to the morality, loyalty and patriotism of retired Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler, who was approached with millions of dollars, pretended to go along with these traitors but reported them to the U.S. Congress. But the elites were never brought to justice. Their power initially made them untouchable until World War II. Butler stuck doggedly to his claims, but was demonized in the media, and the entire ugly affair is now all but wiped from public record. The old money families carried on as usual. Prescott Bush continued on to be a senator, and his son and grandson later became U.S. presidents. The elites control everything: the mass media, our banks, including even the CIA, and the U.S. Federal Reserve. Every aspect of our entire lives. Interestingly, there are reams of worrying quotes warning the world about the existence of powerful financier families, and then the U.S. Federal Reserve, founded by the Act of 1913, which was sneaked past Congress. These famous quotes, spoken or written, have been made over the last 250 years by a host of deeply worried presidents, prime ministers, senior politicians, and businessmen. Imagine U.S. presidents that are powerless to act. The Fed, they say, is run in absolute secrecy, has never once been accounted, is not actually federal, and not a reserve, but a private bank aiming to link up all major world banks, of which there are now virtually none left untouched worldwide. Foreign wars for oil, anyone? It creates money out of nothing, charges the U.S. government colossal interest, and is very defensive about its past and continued dealings. It has the muscle to create economic boom or bust on a whim. With that kind of power, they can control or discard anything or anyone. Theories of the attempted and actual assassinations of at least 4 U.S. presidents, Jackson, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley and JFK, link directly to the Fed, which those men threatened to vanquish. So aren't we lucky that the most powerful people on earth are also the world's nicest, most honest, and most altruistic humanitarians that are only devoted to the loving well-being of over 7 billion of us? Phew! Just suppose how dangerous it might be for so powerful a group of super wealthy businessmen to have ambitions of their own. For they have more wealth, power, and influence than all of the major world leaders put together. Why would hugely important contact with other world beings be left to anyone else? And what if they had their own visions for the world along economic, national, racial, or religious lines, for mass social engineering, no matter how risible, unstable, or depraved? Who could stop them? Remember those shadowy men seen in the US TV show, The X-Files? They were called the Syndicate, a shadow government-type elite, composed of covertly allied influential government super-wealthy patriarchs of old money families like the Rothschilds, Morgans, DuPonts, and Rockefellers. In the show they're seen smoking cigars in luxurious old mansions, nodding to one another knowingly, making coded, hushed phone calls to their inferiors. They operated secretly at the very highest levels of power, concealing from the world a breakaway plan by an extraterrestrial species, defying a previous treaty with such other US groups to recolonize the planet, as well as their own ambitious plans and selfish stake in that disastrous future. From dimly lit, smoke-filled rooms, they discussed world affairs in hushed tones according to their own skewed agenda and dark world view, telephoning their inferiors to carry out murder, targeting of individuals, cover-ups, sabotage, and other sinister orders. These inferiors, or minions, were seen as tiers below them in society. Cold thuggish henchmen known as the Men in Black, merciless protectors of the conspiracy whose true identities, like the members of the Syndicate, were rarely, if ever, known. The MIBs were ex-military, highly trained and loyal hitmen who had, or did, work for any of the many well-known US 3 acronym intelligence agencies, or other unknown ones. Judging the mentality of such elites in TV shows as well as reality, whether elected or not, shows us that they are capable of anything. And not in a good way. Totally devoid of boundaries, morality, and perhaps even of a human soul? What binds these people together aside from fantastic wealth and almost godlike power? After all, this isn't just a rock band behaving badly on stage, or a member of parliament lying to the House, but something far deeper, far more widespread, far more organized, far more disturbing. A barometer of just how much colossal power that this cabal must wield was when the then president, Bill Clinton, was asked by a journalist about investigating UFOs, which he had previously said he would if he got elected. His response was, "There is a government within the government who control this. And I do not control it." And even Queen Elizabeth II, who was regularly briefed on intelligence and security matters, once warned Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler. There are powers at work in this country about which we have no knowledge. One of the world's most powerful and influential people is worried about nefarious groups or agencies operating rogue in her own kingdom? Wow. Michael Aquino was a senior intelligence officer in the U.S. Army, an openly devoted Satanist who had been accused many times of, and was once even charged with, pedophilia and suspected of being involved in missing child cases. Like, for example, Johnny Gosh. He still kept his job. Nothing was wrong with that, apparently. It seems to be these kinds of people that appear to control the planet from the apex to the next powerful tiers below them, intelligence agencies, and politicians downwards. Money and power are their nectar, and no one moves without their say-so, and no one is allowed to threaten their interests. No one. No wonder Nikola Tesla's amazing inventions and discoveries of free energy were such a threat to wealthy businessmen, oilmen, and arms dealers, and were underfunded and stifled. The elite Illuminati probably had its minions stop or kill many other genius inventors of the same type of technology which could have benefited humanity. So, imagine the future for mankind if such rotting, evil mindsets are the ones actually in control of communications with visiting alien species? Especially malevolent aliens with ill intent for humanity? So it's a huge relief that we're under the care of such nice, warm, and cuddly people, right? We should be grateful. Yet the fact that official files relating to UFOs, or anything at all, are still covered up, and we really only officially have that Navy pilot footage and half-baked acknowledgement. What other, half-eaten scraps will they throw down to us revolting peasants next? Well, we've been let in on the huge secret at last. Thanks, we're so appreciative. But we demand more. We, the silent majority, sweat blood each day and unwittingly lose everything to them, so that they can amass incredible wealth, luxury, and power. If we actually are being allowed to know these incredible cosmic snippets, but are being denied the knowledge of what we suspect is the great bulk of our actual existence in the great scheme of things, what in the universe could possibly be so terrible, repulsive, and soul-destroyingly horrific that our supposed elites deliberately continue to conceal it from us?